Hello, friends. It's Logan Albright here to talk to you about a book I just finished reading. It is the adventure novel by H Rider Haggard entitled She. I've heard about this book. I knew about it for many years, and I wanted to read it, and I've only just got around to finishing it. And it's a really good read, I have to say. H. Rider Haggard was a Victorian adventure writer. He is most famous for King Solomon's Mines, which he allegedly wrote as an answer to a bet. Um, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island had just come out, and it was a massive success. And I guess he didn't think too much of it and said, I could do as well as that. And a friend of his said, well, why don't you then? I'll bet you £1 you can't. And so he wrote King Solomon's Mines, which is a very fine adventure novel. Was not as successful as Treasure Island, but was very successful. And his follow-up to that book is this one. And this story of this one revolves around two adventurers who go into the heart of darkest Africa, the dark continent, and discover a 2,000-year-old woman there who of immense beauty and immense power, ruling over a tribe of natives, and learn about her story. It's one of those classic Victorian adventure narratives that, Africa is painted as this dark and mysterious continent where all these dangerous natives live. And it reminds me a lot of Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. It's considered by many to be a precursor to that book. It's a good adventure story, and he does what a lot of Victorian writers do is he tries to authenticate the story. He pretends that it's a manuscript that he found, and he goes to great lengths to try to authenticate that it actually is not something he wrote, but is a real story. I think this is a little unnecessary. It slows down the narrative getting into it. There's about 15 pages at the beginning of authentic Latin and Greek inscriptions that he's had translated by professors of classics at Oxford or whatever university he went to. And it's just so tedious getting through these long original Greek inscriptions just to prove the point that it's an original manuscript, which of course it isn't. He wrote it. Now, what I think is interesting about this book is it could fairly be accused of being very racist, sexist, colonialist, imperialist, Euro-centric, any number of other charges like that. It very much has the feel of the white European, the white Englishman going out and demonstrating his superiority to the rest of the world. And the way that women are treated, and the way that the main woman in this, who's a 2,000-year-old powerful witch almost, although she claims not to have magical powers, she effectively does, is treated. It's not very enlightened, and it wouldn't hold up to scrutiny in today's university settings of where political correctness reigns supreme. But what I think is interesting is how enjoyable it is in spite of all these things. I think we've gotten into a situation now where people are afraid of enjoying anything controversial, and you're now judging things by the standard of today instead of by the standard of their time. This is very much a product of its time. It's very Victorian feeling, but I find that has a certain charm to it. It's got a certain naive charm of the ignorance of the past, the way people thought about things. It kind of transports you to a different time and place, and I find that interesting, and I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable book. It reminds me of, there's a style of music that I'm a big fan of called exotica, and it only existed for about 10 years. It was after World War II, and it was basically America discovering that other countries existed and being excited about them. So they would go out and get some samples of native music from Polynesia or Asia, Southeast Asia, all these places, and they'd bring them back and they'd filter them through Hollywood, and they would have these Hollywood orchestras playing this quasi-native music that was really not authentic at all. And it was around for about 10 years, and it's really specific and weird, but I love it because it's so unique. You don't hear anything like it anymore. And that's a similar reason to why I like books like these Victorian books, because there's nothing like this being written today. You could never get away with it, but they're fun. They're fun adventure stories, It's a particular product of a time and place that I just think is greatly enjoyable. It's like having your own time machine. That's one of the great joys of literature. You can go to different times and places, have your own time machine, and see what people thought back then. The book has been adapted into a movie several times, most famously with Ursula Andress, Peter Cushing, and Christopher Lee for the Hammer Productions. I haven't seen that film, but I'm now very interested in going to see it. I think I'm going to try to get a copy and check it out because I love Peter Cushing and I love Christopher Lee. Should be a great fun ride. But if you're looking for an old, fun adventure story, not kind of lightweight, not too dense, just rollicking good time through Africa, She by H Rider Haggard. Can't really go wrong. All right, that's all I got for today. I'll catch you next time. My name is Logan Albright. If you're interested in my own writing, I have a link to my Amazon page in the description. Thanks for watching.